To get out. Instead you said give this a little more time and everything is gonna be fine. We are on a sinking ship. We are on a sinking ship. And if your people are the best, tell me why are you wearing a vest? This investigation into disinformation keeps putting everyone to the test. So now we are getting drunk. What was sinking now is sunk. And everything we were just trying to save is now vanishing under the weight.
Everybody, hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to Dudes Talking episode 62. Is it honorable for the captain to go down with the ship? LB Bork. Mr. Bork, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me.
Yes, glad to have you back. Definitely glad to have you back. A lot of people have been asking where you've been. Apologize for not having you back on sooner. Of course, you know, you and I talk a lot off-air together, and you're one of my trusted confidants when I talk about trying to understand the world order. So, yeah, it's very interesting.
Disorder.
Yeah, the world disorder at this point, huh?
Yeah,
So
well, that's all their plan. Order out of chaos.
I guess to bring up the question of tonight, is it honorable to try to stay and try to fix, your community and your family and the land that you live on, or is it better just to get out while the ship is sinking and go move and stay and live somewhere else? Um, my answer to that question is it's more honorable to stay and fight and try to fix the problems that you have, uh, where you're living and try to make it into a better place than to leave completely for good. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't reasons why people have to move, like for better employment, to better their families, better their health. Those are separate. I'm talking about specifically people leaving, should I say, the United States and becoming expats and moving to other countries because they believe that the United States is, falling. It's going to falling very quickly. It's going to disintegrate and break up. And instead of trying to stay to make it a better place, they decide to leave to a different country where they hopefully the cost of living is less. They have to pay any taxes to the federal government, and they believe that they will be able to survive better that way. So we're going to
Yeah.
discuss expats from that point of view, but we're also going to discuss expats and that we should try to move more to a local based system instead of, if you're going to expatriate yourself, it should be from the federal government and the beast system, but not necessarily leave the United States as a whole of where you live. So,
Right. Well, Sniff in chat said, "Where you gonna go?"
yeah, where are you going to
Yeah,
go?
yeah, I said that in the PAC unification project. I addressed the problem you're talking about, people leaving, and I know someone that moved down to South America on the station I'm on, and he regrets it because during this virus thing, he was shut down, or they, shut him in, and he couldn't do things. So, yeah, this is worldwide. It's the New World Order, and it stems from the United States. The United States is the boilerplate, which they started about 250 years ago or so, 230, if you want to count the Constitution period of time. And it's progressive. That's what progressive means. When you hear progressive, they're really talking about the advancement of the communist program, which is fundamentally a blueprint for capitalism or corporate monopolies to make profits. So, but I'm the only one that talks about this because everything else is pretty much disinformation.
Yeah, especially when you talk about the free man movement, which we've had discussions about that, or libertarianism. And it's the
Right.
same with expats or expatriation, in that instead of trying to stay here and like my family's been here since the 1700s. Okay,
Right.
so
Hmm.
I'm not gonna leave. I'm gonna try my best. Where I live now was the house of my father, and this
Mm.
area where I live, my family's always been in this area. So
Yes.
why would I leave? Um, I should do my best to try to make the community in the
Yeah,
area that I live in with my family something that's worth it. I mean, it's so funny where I myself am against illegal immigration, but one of the main points that people say about illegal immigration is, well, people should stay in their countries and try to make it a better place from which they came, but yet those same people would also leave the United States and go live somewhere else when things got tough as well.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned people moving around, uh, for a better job. That's why Marx said in the Communist Manifesto, the working men have no country.
Yeah, I
It
can see
was,
that. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, it was kind of a way of saying, once we get this communist thing going, which is capitalism again, the profits for corporations, uh, you can move around where you can get work and make the most money. or you're the most benefit to our enterprise.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly what's happening
Yeah,
today. You know, they want us to placate to Big Daddy government, but they also don't want us to leave the governmental system either. They
right.
don't want us to leave to go to another country, and they don't want us to try to separate ourselves as much as we possibly can here within the United States too as well. They don't want us to return to local or state government structures or return to that with a loose federal system because
Right.
they'll lose a lot of the powers that they have. And so I
Yes.
mean that's the problem. Instead of people staying here and trying to work on the problems that the United States have, there's quite few people that I know in the conspiracy world that have left here recently. They were like, well, I'm gone, I'm leaving. And it's like you need some of your favorite YouTubers that you see, and they left, and it's like, wow, okay, so when the going gets tough, you're just gonna up and leave. And as Sniff said, and as you said too, Mr. Bork, go where? This is gonna encompass the globe in one way or another, So like, where can you go? It doesn't matter Earth. It doesn't matter where you go, So
Hmm.
it's just very interesting in that regard. So
Yes, it's yeah. I've been doing this about 25 years now, so I've seen a lot happen, and I entered this into the law end of it, and that's what they don't want people to know. And if you were back in the 90s and in the movement, two of the favorite things were state sovereignty, which deals with law, okay, and the cashless society, which also deals with law. But today, since about 2010, they've commandeered the movement, and now everyone's wanting to vote for Trump, or they're fighting over if the Earth's flat or not.
yeah.
So this is part and parcel of the powers that be, or the shadow government, or the New World Order, taking things in a different direction. I can tell you that everything out there pretty much is planned opposition. And anything you read off the internet or whatever, even the law end of this thing, you I think mentioned sovereign citizens. That was something that came from misinformation from the 90s, and it was still around until a few years ago. I don't think people have talked about it too much. There's even people on the station that says will tell you law doesn't work, but that was part of a disinformation program. So you had people out there practicing bad information or bad law and expecting it to work. So they just shot down anything that I had going, since about 1998 that was gaining momentum up until about 2008 when they did that bust. And that's how this whole capitalist communist system works, is it's a boom and a bust. And right now, well, I've heard recently that the mortgage problem is going to be worse very soon than it was in 2008. So thanks to the pandemic, or the scamdemic, as some people call it, this is all orchestrated nonsense. I call it a shit show, which is basically a combination of a dog and pony show and chaos. It's one of their things is order out of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the programs. Nietzsche said that back in the 1800s, I think. Out of order, or out of chaos comes order. So they're following that plan. They're using a lot of Hegelian dialectic, which is, they cause a problem, and people have a reaction. Then they have the solution. So that's what's going on with this Black Lives Matters right now. And we can talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll discuss many things this evening. But yeah, it seems a lot with that going on with both the coronavirus pandemic, and on top of that, the protests slash riots that they moved into now. It seems they're going to use the chaos to get their order, as they always have, and it ebb and flows.
Yes.
And that's where we're at, and so people, instead of hunkering down and trying to fix it and trying to weather the storm and try to correct the course once we're able to, people are leaving, and so what is that going to leave us with? It's going to leave us with nothing at that point to be able to base anything off of. And again, like I said, it's the same people who are against illegal immigration, and they're like, well, why don't you go back and fix your country, but you're going to leave because you can't fix your own country. Like doesn't make any
Right.
sense logically.
Yes.
So and it becomes a problem, and so the main issue, I guess, with one of the silver linings that you could say with the pandemic, Mr. Bork, is that some people are realizing how globalism has, given us a lot of commodities. Granted, a lot of it's, Chinese mass-produced garbage,
Right.
but not being able to get a hold of those things anymore because the supply routes are broken down. And it's really becoming a major problem when you go in the grocery store, and you're starting to see food shortages, and those food shortages are going to increase likely in the next few months because the supply chain is not able to recover, and it's still being hindered currently now as we speak, from what I've seen. So I mean, it's going to drive people to some degree to start, starting community gardens and working together and starting
Right.
buying their food locally. And, which we should go back to. There should be a healthy balance between, getting food around the globe and getting food locally. And that might be one of the only silver linings out of this, and something that they may have the powers that be uh, may have not factored in when they ran all their simulations to see how we would react to these the plans of theirs. Is that they didn't expect that. They didn't expect us to start speaking to our families and our neighbors for once, when they stick us indoors, and they didn't plan on that either. So that's why I think they had to activate and push the protests and the riots so much, because people were actually starting to talk and were starting to feel the pressure. They were
Yes.
actually starting to turn their collective anger against the 1%. Now, because we're stuck into the right-left paradigm again, now more than ever, over the protests and the riots, now they're trying to stick us into a race war. Now they're trying to get us at each other's necks and throats. Instead of pointing, us at them, now we're at each other. So they deflected it in one masterful stroke.
Yes.
Because instead of us being angry at them, now we're angry at each other. So all they have to do is just sit back. Everybody's blaming one another. Everyone's fighting one another. Even the liberals and the leftists, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, who think that they are actually, going to bring better social change. And some people are genuine to believe that, and some of them are agent provocateurs or paid agents. But the thing is they're not bringing that. They're not bringing an overthrowing of the corrupt Luciferian government. Instead, they're bringing, another violent revolution very similar to the Jacobins, or very similar to the Bolsheviks. And in
Yes.
doing so, it's going to be, the people against the people, not the people against the rulers. And just like in those other revolutions, and Lord knows I hope it doesn't end to this. I really don't. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to end up losing their lives over their revolution, while they sat in their ivory towers and ivory castles away from it. I hope to God it doesn't get that bad. Maybe it wasn't. People have been talking about race wars and talking about planned division to this degree beforehand. It never come to fruition. But I've never seen anything like this, Mr. Bork. I think, our best is we should come together for the betterment of ourselves and the better for our community, so that we can go against the 1%. I just don't see it happening. I'm really afraid. I guess afraid is not the right word. I'm concerned that they're going to stage a second wave and they're going to push even further for more lockdown that they couldn't get within the first wave. And it's going to end up leading to that. And we'll see. I mean, there's a trillions upon trillions of outcomes this can go, but no matter what, I think that they're going to take more power away from us, as they've always done, and power that we won't get back. There will be a new normal, just like there was with 9/11. And the only way we'd be able to rectify that is to stop fighting each other and go back to trying to protest and go against them again.
Now, protesting's a waste of time.
Yeah, it is.
Their First Amendment is just a joke. If you study the Constitution enough, you would find that even the Second Amendment's a joke. You can't revolt against your state government. There was a slight loophole in the Constitution when they put it together. They didn't expect, or it's really hard to say. I say the so-called Civil War was basically orchestrated. It's similar to creating division, what they're doing now with the Black Lives Matter. Of course, they used the blacks as slaves back then to institute the Civil War, but I don't know if they couldn't get the governors of the southern states to play along, and people like Jefferson. I think it was Jefferson Davis. I mix up names a lot because there's a lot of crossover between names from that period of time. But
you mean the president of the Confederacy? Yeah, it was Jefferson.
Yes, they tried to try him for treason, but they dropped the case because there was no treason, because the loophole of the Constitution allows the states to secede from the Union as long as the governor or the government of the state says it's okay. But today, under the 14th Amendment system and 130 or 50 years now of programming, no governor is going to go for that. Yeah. So any revolt, technically under the original system, they can send the federal government and quash it. An armed revolution.
They can. I mean, especially with the advanced technology that they have now.
Well, yeah, it's a joke in that respect. Alone.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
they only let Americans have guns so they can kill each other. It works great with the blacks.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of division between the violence that they try to bring out, and I mean, I understand the right of owning a gun to protect oneself, but there's a lot of crime that comes from it too as well, and it's definitely to not attack the government at all.
I'm not to be an anti-gun at all, but I'm just saying, as far as a so-called revolt or going against the government today, it's a joke, the Second Amendment. And that's what the Second Amendment was allegedly for, is to protect the states from tyranny. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
people having weapons and well-regulated militias, which we don't really have either, depending on what state you live in. So how are you going to protect against tyranny when we don't have well-regulated militias? And because they vilified the militia movement out of the 1990s.
They did. That's part of the law that people have lost in the so-called movement. I call it constipation. It's full of shit and going nowhere.
Yeah. And a lot of.
I hope you don't mind the swear words.
No, it's fine. And a lot of people, hate that. A lot of people.
What, in particular?
A lot of people hate it when you tell them that they have guns, but they won't be able to really overthrow the government. Like you hear, like a lot of the militia movement. And a lot of the patriot movements, why I myself consider myself a patriot in that regard. But the thing is a lot of them try to think that they could stop some sort of totalitarian government.
Right.
But not at this point.
Not at this point. With what you just said, with technology, they have. I mean, they can flip a switch and everyone craps their pants and drops their guns.
Yeah.
Literally. within
Yeah.
a perimeter, a certain area. So, it is a joke. So, I determined this years ago. So what I did is studied the law and found out how to get out of the system or bring it down, you know. So it had worked, but, they've stepped up their disinformation program the last 10 years, especially when I released my book. They really started putting garbage out there for people to consume, disinformation, distractions, whatever. And
Yeah,
like I said,
it
by
seems
2008, it was taken care of
it
for the
seems
most
like
part.
most people are just they're confused, especially when I try to talk to people on Twitter. When people talk about the First Amendment, they're always like, "Well, YouTube banning videos and taking videos down, that's a violation of the First Amendment." And I'm like, "No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No,
These
there's
these
different. It only stops the government from jailing you because of your speech, not a corporation. It doesn't work under that. So
the problem is the government can limit what these people do because the corporation's a creature of the government.
yeah,
So they can restrict it, but they don't want to because these private owners like Jack, what's his name? On Twitter?
Jack
Uh,
Posobiec,
is, it, is it that? No.
Jack
Who owns
Dorsey.
Twitter? Yes, Dorsey. Yeah, and Mark Zuckerberg. They're operatives, just like I believe Bill Gates was a shadow government operative that fronted Microsoft.
Yeah,
They're fronting Facebook and Twitter for the government, or not the government per se, but the shadow government,
hmm
which would be the synagogue of Satan, for lack of better or explanation or words. So these guys are not going to get shut down, and because of people's ignorance of the law and how things work, they don't know how to take care of it, which is unfortunate.
yeah, very much so. I mean, and so when you try to talk to people about their actual First Amendment rights, they get very upset because look, I'm not for censorship. Don't get me. I'm not a fan of it.
Right.
However, though, YouTube has every right. I mean, if they ban my channel tomorrow, then so be it. They can. They're a corporation. They have a right to, and it's not in violation of the First Amendment. It is what it is. It's just like when they took my monetization away. I said it was censorship in a post because it is, but I didn't say that it was, or them taking down my, not really them demonetizing me as a form of censorship. What was a form of censorship is when they took down my video when I covered the Council of Foreign Relations and the left when it comes to the pandemic. They took that video down. That video, them taking that down, that was censorship, but it wasn't a violation of my First Amendment rights. People don't
Right.
understand
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, that's how they circumvented the system of constitutional law. That's how they're doing it through these, uh, you know, dummy corporations.
Yeah. And so when you try to tell someone, yeah, you're pro gun and you're pro Second Amendment, but since we don't have well regulated militias, and since the United States government and military have advanced weaponry that the average citizen does not have, and even your police force has advanced weaponry, has been
Sure.
militarized since the 1990s. I mean, what are we gonna do? There's only so much that can
Right.
be done. I'm not saying that you roll over and let them have their way with you. I'm not saying that at all. But the thing is we need to return to the basics. We need to learn how we can better our families and better our communities, and learn how to grow food and learn survival skills and learn things that we can, trades and crafts that we can pass down to our family members and try to survive the best way we can and make the air, and try to awaken those around us, your neighbors, and try to get them to understand the best that you can, which I know it can be quite difficult depending on where you live. Just do those things that which you can do. Don't think that because you have an AR-15, when the government comes, you ain't going to be taken out too. You might, you pretty likely are. You probably are. All right, if it ever gets to that stage. So
Right. Right.
it's just difficult. There are things that we could be doing to,
Constructive.
yes, that can be doing to, if the ship is going down, things that you can do to maybe delay that moment. But it is honorable to go down with the ship. It is honorable to try your best to try to save the ship and to go down with it, instead of leaving and giving up or escaping somewhere or thinking that you're going to be better somewhere else. It's just not.
Right. Right.
And I mean, it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, I understand. I get the appeal with everything that's going on out there in the world, and how difficult it could be, that if you had the means and the money to go live somewhere else. But eventually, where are you going to go to? So, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?
Nowhere. This is a world system, and it, like I said, its genesis is the United States, but it is the old world order that did all this.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I was telling someone today, I think a young person, as you are, you're younger than me.
Yes.
That it's funny, all these protesters are tearing down history of the United States, right? Okay. So they're tearing down their heritage. You were talking about heritage a few minutes ago, which is what we have. It's our history, our heritage. But they're tearing it down because they've been programmed to. So what do they have? If you don't like the history of the United States, which, yes, it was basically constructed by the old world order, but why don't you leave? If you don't like it here, leave. If you think the Aboriginal tribes should have it back, or whatever your problem is, maybe or you didn't like the South in the Civil War because they're racist, which is total nonsense. That whole thing's was orchestrated. I believe that the blacks are brought in here for a future problem, to solve the problem, just like Black Lives Matter is being used right now as a tool to create this chaos. They were brought in early, and actually slavery, as far as I've researched, maybe you can verify this, or maybe I'm wrong, but in the time of the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire started to fall, and people started practicing Christianity, which would, it did away with the slavery. But the slavery came back in like the year 1500, and they've said the Christians brought it back. Well, that's not right. The Jesuit order technically brought it back. And of course, the Synagogue of Satan profited in bringing slaves over to the United States. So, and plus there's white slaves too.
There was indentured servitude too, as well. Yeah, I was watching a documentary on the Black Wall Street Tulsa race riots, which were horrific. And one thing I found, because I could never figure out why the Lumbee Indians, where I live in North Carolina, why they would always be very pro-Confederacy. All right. And I mean, this is very, very pro-Confederacy. I couldn't figure that out. And and then when I watched that documentary, something I did not know was that the Native Americans owned a lot of slaves. Now, granted, not as much as white people did, not at all, but they owned a lot of African American slaves, and brought a lot of with them to Oklahoma, and that's why they settled, and eventually, later when Tulsa, Oklahoma, was where the Black Wall Street was destroyed, very sadly. But where the race riots occurred. But the thing is, what I learned about that was I didn't know that many Native Americans had fought for the Confederacy, and not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. And so I could, because I remember growing up in school, and the Lumbee tribe, they were fighting for tribal recognition. All right, and they could never get it. Because the Indians, the other Native Americans, didn't think that they were Native Americans. They thought the Lumbees were a mixture of African Americans and white people.
Mm.
And I could never figure out why the Lumbees did not. They would always get into fights with the African Americans in school. I mean, a lot. And they would always be wearing Confederate flag shirts and everything. And so there's one part of history that I never knew. I never understood that until I watched that documentary, and I was like, wow, okay, I never knew Native Americans also owned slaves. And just like you mentioned earlier, and that doesn't make it right. I'm just saying that's something that I had never heard of. And it was something that I could never figure out why. And so some people here in the South, now I've never owned a Confederate flag. I've lived in the suburbs. I had family members who lived out in the country who did. But, myself, I never saw the appeal. But I understood, or at least I can more now, where for some people it is their heritage and not necessarily hate. Now, I have seen some white nationalists down here in the South that'll parade the Confederate flag and the South will rise again and all that. There's definitely some racial components to that, don't get me wrong, but it's just
Yeah.
interesting of how when you talk about the tear down the monuments, people forget, as Orwell said, who controls the past controls the future, who controls the present controls the past. So if you're going to erase this history, no matter what side of the fence that you stand, you're doomed to repeat it.
Right.
You're doomed to repeat that. So it's you got to keep it up as a reminder, even if it's something you find detestable, so you don't look back and do that again. The same with one thing I find very interesting is someone always mentions is they never tear down an Albert Pike statue.
Yeah.
Because he's another fellow traveler, a Mason, so they never tear down. They never tear down they never tear down an Albert Pike statue.
Yeah. Well,
So,
the funny thing about Pike is I think he was born in Massachusetts, or a national or citizen, if you want to call him. They didn't even talk about nationality at that time, but it existed, but they didn't talk about it in law, because it's something they hid from day one, and that's the basic elements of what I've discovered and what the remedy is. Okay, but yeah, Pike was from Massachusetts, but he served in the Confederate Army.
yeah.
He was a mole,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of history that many people get confused on, and I'm not saying that I have it completely 100% right either. No one really does. And there's a lot of bullcrap in history, and a lot of people have different gripes about it that I can understand and I can see. But the thing is it's you can't go around and destroy the statues or the history that's up just because you don't like it. It stands as a reminder. It's just like I don't see why they don't. And I know this is. I guess some people are going to say it's wrong for me to say this, but I'm still going to say it. It's like equivalent. Okay, so people think, and I find slavery abhorrent. But people are saying, okay, so slavery is abhorrent, therefore we should take down these statues so they won't be a reminder of it. But at the same time, they apply that same logic to keeping the concentration camps as a memorial to World War II and to the Holocaust, but they keep those camps up because they say you should never forget. And there's and this is the same aspect for these statues. Like, yes, people, including myself, find slavery to be abhorrent, but they stand to some they stand as heritage. For some, yes, there's some people who use it to embolden, empower their racism. And for other people, it's a reminder of a darker time of the United States that some people might want to forget. Okay? A time where, slavery existed, and I can understand that. I can empathize with that. But you can't use the same logic for both. Like, you have to maintain it there for history purpose so you don't repeat the same mistakes that were made previously beforehand. And you could tie that back into the expat and people leaving too as well. is trying to escape their own present or past or future too. So
Well, unlike you, John, a lot of people in the United States don't have a heritage or a history like that. My family came in later, I think after the Civil War. I haven't really researched that, but, you know, this has been a commercial plantation minimum for the last 150 years. There's no natural societies that have developed. It's all controlled, and it's all based on commerce. The human resource, that's the thing that developed PAC. That was my first thing I really addressed when I started People's Awareness Coalition, is the human resource terminology. It's just disgusting. I know a lot of your listeners are probably young, but they used to be called personnel departments in companies. Mm-hmm. And now, of course, corporation, they don't even use the word company anymore.
Well,
they use the word
corporation now anymore. They call it HR, human resources.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That term is disgusting. It says what it is. It's
human capital.
It's human capital, yes. And people accept it. And it's happened in the last 40 years. And I didn't know it existed until the late 80s because I started my own business when I was out of high school for the most part. And I knew, from going to my dad's work when I was a child, they were called personnel departments. And I went into my ex-wife's business. She worked at Citibank. And I saw, human resources written on a door. I go, what the hell is that? I knew there was something wrong right at that point.
Yeah.
And they slip these things in slowly. That's why they call it progressives. He's a progressive. Oh, he's a communist. Okay. They these nice terms they call everyone. Oh, he's a conservative. Oh, he's a communist. He's just not as radical as a liberal, is what you're telling me. These labels they pinned on everyone, they don't even know what they mean.
No, they don't. And it's just, and again with the statues, I guess to circle back with that is causing such the division in the country is they're even trying to take down statues of people who don't own slaves, like Lafayette, for example, Marquis de Lafayette, who was sent from France over here in the American Revolution, and who's a very supposedly there's two stories of the Brisson family. One is he is a distant relative of mine. He was a cousin of one of my cousins, or he may not have. They're kind of going back and forth about my ancestry, of whether or not we were related to Marquis de Lafayette or not. But he didn't own any slaves. So when they keep trying to talk about bringing down his statue in this town that I live in Fayetteville, and Marquis de Lafayette also found slavery to be abhorrent too as well. I'm like, you guys don't even know. Like he wasn't a slave owner. Like he found slavery abhorrent, but yet you want to lump him in with everybody else and tear down his statue. It's like, what? So it's just, I mean, I don't know. It's you're destroying history, and I understand some people could say it's monuments, and I could say, well, I can compromise and say, well, move them to museums. I can understand that. I don't agree with it, but I can understand that. But it's like with progressive, it's forward marching of communism, and conservatives, it's like, what are they conserving? That's all.
Yeah. Like I said, these people are, participating in their own future slavery, and they don't even realize it. They're useful idiots, as the Russians used to call people they could manipulate into doing the deeds of the communist movement, which again, I'm pretty much the only one that I've written a book on and did the research on that's discovered that, they're basically the same thing. People have said it candidly throughout history, but they really didn't expand or expound it on it. I wrote a book on it, and no one talks about it. Everyone is still following the narrative that they're two different entities and they work together. Communism was simply a blueprint or a plot, a cabal to do two things: destroy the middle class and take their businesses away from them, and turn the middle class, along with the proletariat, into a working class, one big working class for the ruling elite and the elite, which you say are the 1% or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's what it was meant to do. And the rule of capitalism is the ones with the most capital win. So that's we see that's happening, and all the planks of the Communist Manifesto are applied in America, and have been for over 50 years. It took them about 100 years to do it, but they got it done. So what we're seeing now is Marxism. They call it cultural Marxism, and it's just that dog and pony show of things that were talked about by Marx and some other communists in order to destroy the society that we once had. And they've been doing that pretty aggressively the last 20 years. And it started back in the 60s. It really started back in the 60s. The 1960s.
And then of course now, people will always make the argument, I guess one last thing on statues and I'll move on. People make the argument, well, there's no statues of Hitler in Germany. Well, yeah, but there are numerous statues of Stalin in Russia. And Stalin killed a fair more amount of people than Hitler. So, yes. It is what it is. Stalin and Hitler and Mao, all evil in my opinion. But the thing is there's still statues of Stalin to remind Russians of multiple statues, not just one, multiple statues of Stalin. And you don't see the Russian people destroying them. So
no, this is a new angle to communism. And the reason they have to do it here is because, communism in Russia was pretty overt. They had no hiding it. It's been hidden here. Trump says stupid things like America will never be socialist. Well, yes, it is. So it's a social security number. He's a liar and a deceiver, just like this whole program. So, they're doing what they're doing because they have to, because they lied. They just flat out deceived everyone for 150 years on this. And it was from the basis or the base of the Constitution too, was a big lie too. But they couldn't do what the Communist Manifesto did during the Civil War. It's mechanics and its parameters, its social change. They couldn't implement that when they put the Constitution in place. It was too much change for people that believed in freedom. So they wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't have gotten away with it. So they had to do, even the first 70 years before the Civil War, had to be deceptive and stealthy. And of course, I've seen it through the laws and things of what they've done.
And I guess one last thing is, one thing I've seen I want to address, Big D said in the chat, tear down the Georgia Guidestones. As much as I detest the Georgia Guidestones with every fiber of my being, no, leave it up. So people will see the plans of the world order as part of history, that they were brazen enough to make those Guidestones. Leave it up.
Yeah, it needs to be evidence. It's evidence. Oh, one more thing about all this.
We got one question from the chat. Real quick,
this destruction of property. These people are destroying property. They should be in jail, but they're not.
And one question comes from the chat, Mr. Bork, from Sniff. Do you think any of the founding fathers were Templar Knights or had connections to the Templars?
Oh yeah, they were Masons. Thomas Jefferson, as far as the popular president, or not presidents, but per se, but founding fathers, as they're called, was one of the only people that was probably on the right path. So yeah, the so-called Masons like Washington, he was a Mason. They can't be trusted. But they were dupes too. They were considered enlightened and started this. As far as I'm concerned, the Masons and the Templars, they're all arms of the synagogue of Satan, or tools, or what they call. I can't think of the term I want to use.
All arms of Babylon.
Arms of Babylon. They're all just useful idiots.
And
Or
so,
minions. Minions is they're called today with the kids. The minion with the one eye. That's mocking the Illuminati, or saying, these minions, these fun, playful minions, are basically the ones that are controlling everyone's life. That's what that's all about.
yeah. He also says, do you see a distinction between the Masons and Templars? I think you do, Mr. Bork. I do. They're two separate entities. So,
Yes, they have many entities to do their dirty work.
yes, I agree.
But it all goes back to, if you want to read a good book, Tupper Saucy's Rulers of Evil, and it deals mostly with the conversion of the pharaohs to the Roman Empire, and carries on from there, and that still exists today. Basically, the United States was a rebirth of the Roman Empire through the Vatican, and of course the Vatican was infiltrated in the 1500s by the Jesuits, which was a Jewish or synagogue of Satan enterprise, or faction.
DK Wilson in the chat said, Thomas Jefferson said the goal of the founding was to establish a continental empire. He was aligned with the rest of them. Very so true. Thomas Jefferson's Bible also denied the miracles and divinity of Christ too. So yes,
But
we've had many discussions on the founding fathers, Mr. Bork. The only one that I can think that may even be considered a Christian, or one who I believe heart was in the right place, was Patrick Henry.
yes, I agree with that. But as far as the original founding fathers, Jefferson believed in agrarian society over industrial. And that's where we got to get back to. You kind of mentioned that at the top of the show.
We got to get back more to a local, more local, and less globalist. I mean, there are benefits to a globalist society to some degree as your option.
Yes.
At what cost? At what cost?
Yeah. Now that you say that, people listening have to be aware of two things. New Constitution, that the people, not the people. Yeah, con. People have to be aware of that. And I heard Trump say that these tariffs he's dealing with right now and adjusting are just temporary. He said that eventually there will be no tariffs. And that's 180 degrees away from where we need to be.
Yes, we need to.
So
we need to get rid.
People have to be aware of that.
As you have discussed, we need to get rid of the income tax and replace more to excise tariff system.
Right.
To go back to how the economy was originally run here in the United States.
Right.
And you can't have both. You can't have strong tariffs and income tax either, because then you get double or triple tax at that point, which runs a problem. But yeah, Trump's definitely reversed course on tariffs, as I would expect that to happen. And on top of reversing course on tariffs, like you had mentioned earlier, Trump very much, when he said that that there will not be the United States will never be a socialist or communist country. Josh Reeves from the Global Reality said, "Well, yep, the moment he said that means it's going to happen eventually."
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's probably right. Well, no, it's already happened. He's lying.
Yeah. But it's
that's just an example of people not knowing what's transpired over the last 200 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of been kind of under the radar in that regard. You know what I mean? And where we live, it's people would call us a republic or a constitutional republic, but we're more of a corporatocracy kind of.
Oh, totally.
Communist. It's kind of like a hodgepodge of pick their own governmental structures and kind of put them in a blender, and we want this part over here of communism, but we also want this part from a kleptocracy, and we also want this part from fascism. Kind of graft them all together into, I guess, a new world order.
Well, no, they've used every good thing that despotic government has used through history. They've got bits and pieces of all of it.
Yep, and they've done it hidden too as well.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's definitely hidden.
And when you try to talk to your average person about it, they look at you kind of with a weird look on your face. Their face, they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "You not understand it? It's what about the United States prison population? It's highest in the world. You think it would be China, right? No. Not per capita. It's here. It's here. And so yeah, I mean, I guess you could say home of the free. Land of the free, I guess.
No, it's home of the free and land of the slave.
Yeah, pretty much. So at this point, is there anything else you want to close with, Mr. Bork? Anything else you can think of?
Close with? We haven't talked about the remedy much. I don't know if you want to give the paperwork.
Let's do that for a few minutes of what you believe. First of all, I definitely recommend that they order your book, The Red Amendment. I have it in the show notes of where to get it, to kind of understand exactly how we got to where we are in America. One of the things I constantly hear, Mr. Bork, I want to ask you, is I hear some people say, well, if we just all stopped paying taxes, they couldn't enforce it on everyone. Is there some truth to that, or is that silly?
I can't get two people in one state to listen to me.
But if that did happen, do you think that would work? I understand.
I'm just saying realistically
I understand. It's like when they do those. I know it's kind of a loaded question because it's the same thing when they're like, "Well, boycott this business," and if we boycott them for one day, they'll feel it, and it's like, yeah, well, no one ever does it, and you can never get.
Yeah, they can't get it to do. That's the problem, and that I knew this years ago. Yeah, it would work. They don't have the tools to, or the manpower to. Take care of it, but it's not going to happen just based on what you just said. So I knew this. That's why I was hoping, 20 years ago when I wrote my book and gave people the remedy to start doing things and taking care of the problems that, a few people would come on board and then the 100th monkey principle would kick in. And that's what we still hope with PAC, People's Awareness Coalition, to get that done. And, it's not going to happen without people being the first monkey, we're not going to get to 100 monkeys.
Well, we need people to at least just support, we're going to try to build a ring of people that, have vetted and all working together to try to bring the truth out and just, do your best to support those people. Just like when they used to have web rings back in the day, of people that used to share their own work together and recommend people to try to do that again. Because that's hopefully, that's where we're going to get to this point. It's very interesting.
But yeah, you were talking about expatriation, and that's what I did over 20 years ago. I expatriated under their law. They approve it, but they buried it, and it's very cryptic the way they've done it. So, I took back my lawful nationality. If you read in the Communist Manifesto, one of the things they're trying to do, and you heard of borderless world or no border, but that gets back to what I was saying. There's no borders, so they can move their human resources around to work for these corporations, these multinational corporations that aren't restricted with borders. So that's the essence of the Communist Manifesto. It comes out of there. And if you read in the Communist Manifesto, they want to do away with countries and nationalities. Well, as a matter of law, the states were considered individual countries before the Civil War, and they also carried a nationality, but you'll find no case law on that. But the Congress has addressed it, and they still recognize it, but it's hidden. So that's what my research has brought forward, and they've made a remedy for it because they have to follow international law and constitutional law under this insurgent system under the 14th Amendment, or they're going to be considered in treason. What they've done is set voters up and the people participating to be deemed in treason. So, that's the secret they hold over everyone's head. Everyone's in treason and a criminal, which thus makes them a slave. So they justify all the debt that they're being charged with under the, the current system, all the, the Federal Reserve debt and everything.
Yes.
So they're silent slaves and they don't even realize it by operation of constitutional law. And they don't want people knowing this. And that's what PAC's about, to expose all this and fix it.
Because there is still time, And,
there's time. They turned Agenda 21 into Agenda 2030 now. That tells me we got 10 years to really do something. The ignorance and stupidity of the people the last 20 years has been wasted, because I had the remedy and brought this forward. And of course, all they have to do is dangle a carrot out in front of people and they go in that direction. And that's what's happened to PAC the last 20 years. That's why we don't have a ton of people, because there's been copycats that have taken my work and misrepresented it and divide and conquer methods of the agent provocateurs, and I call them operatives. I got a paper called Operatives and Opportunists, and I don't see any difference between the two because they create the same damage. And the people that have taken my work, I don't think they were operatives, but they're opportunists, and they divided us up, and they don't know what I know, and they stole money from people and misdirected them in different ways. So that's what I've been dealing with for 20 years, and it's going to happen again if people aren't willing to work together. And that's what I put together in the paper, or called the PAC Unification Project. And, that's how they get away with this, by division, divide and conquer, is a rule out of Sun Tzu's military book, military rule.
Yes, very much so. All right, Mr. Bork. Well, take care. I'm glad to have you on. We'll have you on again soon. And definitely, your website is back up, correct?
Yes, they're back up and working. And the reason they went down is because these people that control the tech industry are making it harder and harder for individuals to run things. They keep changing the way things operate.
Yes,
and it's getting hard. They've got what they've done the last 10 years. When the internet first came out 20 years ago, it was great because everyone had their own website and they had to pay for that and put it up and control it. Now they've got everyone on clouds and doing stuff on Facebook. They've commandeered everything and got everyone sucked into these systems. And we talked about that earlier, about you can't say what you want. So eventually this is all going to disappear unless people stop using it. Mm-hmm. So they're going to eventually own everything. So that's how they're doing it. So you got to back out of it, or you're not going to have free speech. You're going to be able to say what they allow you to say.
Yeah, very much so. And
then they're already doing that, of course.
They are doing that. Yeah, they are. They are. All right, we'll go. I got your show notes, PAC Alliance, and PACandlaw.us, and where to buy the Red Amendment too as well. I hope everybody listening go check out your site, Mr. Bork, and everybody in the chat saying great show. Thank you, sir, for having on. We'll have you on again soon. Okay.
Thank you. Take care, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Bork. Have a good evening. All right, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care until next time. Talk to you again soon. God bless you.
walk through the garden, you better watch your back. Well, I beg your pardon, walk a straight and narrow track. If you walk with Jesus, he'll save your soul. You gotta keep the devil down in the hole. He's got the fire and the fury at his command. Well, you don't have to worry.